Welcome, friends,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion's the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
we're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get one that we know of. So you better make the most of it.
Yeah, Bo!
Engage.
Well, Uncle Mark, hey, let's do a show, should we?
Let us proceed to do our weekly penance.
With no caution, we're throwing caution to the wind.
With a lack of an abundance of caution.
Wow, that was the fanciest double negative I've ever heard in my entire life.
We're going to dive into some deeply strange things today.
Some crazy thing. You're going to teach us all about one way to go to heaven.
Yes, one of the least worst heaven we've ever examined.
Yeah, peace be upon it. And
yes.
then Uncle Doug will be here. He'll tell us
something about our attitude.
He's going to give us a beatitude adjustment.
Yes, and then you are going to introduce us to something old that is new again.
It is, and never was, all at the same time.
Yes, it is a thing. It's not a thing.
Very, very. Oh, it's so mysterious when we talk about it
mysterious.
that way.
So let's jump in.
Okay, fine. Let's do it. Hey, Uncle Doug.
Uncle Dan.
And hi, Uncle Mark, also to you.
Hello.
We're here doing a show, and this part of the show is where we're going to go to heaven. Are you excited, Uncle Doug?
I'm always excited.
Because Uncle Mark is going to take us to... Now, so far, we don't have a great track record. Every time we envision a heaven, or every time we discuss a heaven that someone has envisioned, it ends up being an eternal nightmare. It's like it sounds like it'd be nice for a lifetime or something, and then or even less than that, and then
much less than that,
and then it turns into
okay, here's where we might deviate from that a little bit.
Ooh, yay.
And it is as big a surprise to me as it's going to be to you. Because this particular heaven is called Jannah.
Okay.
Which is the Muslim heaven.
Oh.
And of all the heavens and hells that we've done so far, it's not so bad.
Really?
It's not so bad.
They've done okay?
They've done okay. I think this is going to talk a lot to Muhammad's salesmanship.
Okay,
because boy, he had a real lemon to sell people, but he had an incentive program. So let's get into it. This heaven is called Jannah, Jannah.
Can you spell that in Arabic?
Yes, Cody, edit in someone saying that word in Arabic here. So I said it perfectly, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
So Jannah is actually a colloquial for the word paradise.
Okay, sure.
But it literally means garden. Jannah literally means garden. So this is important because the final abode of the righteous is also the very same place as the Garden of Eden, where Adam and a woman who does not have a name in the Quran.
Okay.
Which is weird.
She got demoted?
She got demoted. Probably the most important woman that's ever lived, the first one.
All of our great something grandmother.
That's right. In other Muslim sources, she's called Hawa, but she doesn't have a name in the Quran, so...
I think it's Maud.
Maud.
Her name is just Maud.
Maud, honey. Look at what's this red thing to eat.
Did you eat that fruit? I hope you didn't.
Oh, honey, you ate the fruit.
Maud.
Heaven for Muslims is also the literal place on earth where the first man and woman lived. So that's a little weird.
It's kind of nice and cyclical, though.
It's earthly?
They bookend.
Right.
Sure.
It bookends. So
sure, why not? Good.
And look, Muhammad was largely sculpting out of other people's clay, so fuck whatever. Make what you want.
Yeah.
So the actual Arabic word for paradise is Firdaus, which is also the name of the highest level of heaven in Islam. So already it's a bit linguistically and geographically confusing right off the bat, but we'll make sense of it.
There's a VIP tent in the garden. We get it.
Yeah, we've been here before. So also take care not to mispronounce Jannah as Jannam, which, as we will explore in a future segment, is the Islamic word for hell.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very fraught. Like there's a lot of if your Arabic pronunciation is off, you are pooched.
It's like Buttle and Tuttle
in Brazil.
in Brazil.
Yeah, good. Wrong podcast for movie reference, but that's okay.
I don't remember.
So,
It's a good movie.
Here's what I found most unexpected about Jannah as I read up on it. Is really good. So, like most of Islam, as I was mentioning, is grafted off of older concepts in Judaism and Christianity,
Which are grafted off
which themselves are grafted largely off of older ideas. But Jannah is unlike the broad Christian concept of heaven, where eternal life is just endless servility in the presence of God, giving praise to him forever. Jannah is pretty much wine, women, and song forever. Yeah. There is a presence of God thing, and it's like, his power and his glory and all that. But
Yeah, there's really only one thing I know about Muslim heaven before today, and that is a lot of women.
Well, they do say, all we ever hear about is like if someone's going to blow himself up,
Yep.
he gets 72 virgins, which, by the way, can I just mention that 72 virgins on an eternal scale? First of all, they don't stay. They're only virgins the one time.
well, we'll get into that.
Oh,
And
really?
It's a little odder than that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Sounds good.
But you're right. That is if the standard issue guy or person in America knows anything about Muslim heaven, it's 72 virgins.
Yeah.
So
Did I get the number right? It's 72?
72.
Okay.
So we'll
It's 72.
Oddly specific.
we'll get into it, but it's also Jannah is also this incredibly lush and green and verdant place, right? And
It better be.
if you consider the environment Islam was invented in, basically the Arabian Peninsula, where green is very rare, and some mammals even evolved massive water storage systems onto their backs, this kind of makes sense. So,
I
like
think my aunt did that.
oh yeah, but
Had one of those.
It's a condition,
You know.
But like that old chestnut, the grass is always greener in places that actually have grass. You always want what you can't have. Also consider that the harsh, bleak homogeneity of the oceans of sand and emptiness of Arabia were so homogeneous indeed that the appearance of a single black rock about the size of a canned ham,
Oh, yeah.
probably a meteorite, into that blankness may well have kicked off one of the world's major religions, but we'll talk about that another time because that is fucking insane.
That's the rock that's in the black box
In the Kaaba.
Do you
that
think
everybody
it's-
walks around.
Yeah, you think that's actually in there?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Somebody stole that years ago.
No, minor diversion. It is not only, it is on there. It is in a silver Volvic shaped frame on a exterior corner of the Kaaba.
Oh.
And you may touch it.
Oh, really?
The rock?
Yeah,
Oh.
it's part of circling the Kaaba that you touch, and it's just called the Black Stone.
Huh.
That you touch the Black Stone. And again, we'll do this whole thing another time because it's fascinating. But the Kaaba and the Black Stone are pre-Islamic.
Yeah, right.
They were Nabatean.
So what's inside the Kaaba then? Is it like a janitor's closet?
No,
There's like a
it's-
broom and a mop sink?
It's a little room that has a rug on the floor, and it has a bunch of brass like pitchers and amphora hanging up in it. I'm not even kidding. You can see pictures of the
It's
interior.
tastefully decorated.
It's just a one-bedroom.
Don't worry yourself.
It's on Airbnb.
Every once in a while, there's the Saudi royal family will do some kind of ceremony in the Kaaba.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
so we'll talk about it another time because it is really fascinating. So, where were we? So remember too, Uncle Dan, that Muhammad and Uncle Dan is just finishing up a very nice drawing of him as we speak,
Yeah, sure.
and that's a whole notebook full by now. That's a good one. That's
Thank you.
Answers the age-old question of what a prophet wears under his kilt, I guess.
Well,
So just put that with the others.
I would like to take this opportunity to disassociate myself with the How to Heretic.
So anyway, Muhammad, who is the author of the Quran, or its scribe, if you happen to believe the archangel Jibril whispered it all to him in a cave, was looking to pick up followers and ultimately take the show on the road. With really nothing to offer new recruits other than a whole lot of sexual hang-ups and struggle, or jihad as it's commonly known,
right.
he had to develop an incentives program, thus putting a much more leisurely spin on the Judeo-Christian versions of heaven, and that is Jannah. Again, unlike the rather sketchy and dismal concept of eternal harp playing and choir enslavement, Jannah is a feast. Food never spoils, which is good because it's piled in such abundance that it would be impossible to consume it all, even over forever. and if I read the fairly confusing source material correctly, and it is fairly confusing, there's a process by which bodies digest food without creating waste, so there's no more poo. It's one of the few poo-free heavens. And liquids are excreted as a sweat of sweet perfume.
Oh, sure.
So Trump would love it. And all this plenty is served and maintained by huri, who are full-breasted young women who are also available for after-dinner entertainments. So huri also serve sharab un tahura to their guests. Basically, it's wine. It's wine. So
Sure.
The hook of jhana is really that all that was forbidden in this life will be more than permissible in the next. It will be compulsory.
So wait a minute. So far, what you're describing, and I'm sure you'll get to it. This is heaven for straight men.
Oh, this is the straightest heaven. Can you imagine? This is a heaven where there's full-breasted women, and it's just like Axe body spray for days.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yes.
It sounds pretty bro right now.
Here's the other weird thing.
Okay.
Is homosexuality is not expressly forbidden in the Quran.
What?
Right. It is. I should be more clear. It is considered a minor crime. It is not considered a sin.
I mean, we know you ain't gonna go to no Saudi Arabia and be and fag it up.
But here's what's also funny is there is, of course, they recognize that there are female martyrs for the faith.
Right.
And we'll get to it when we talk about the 72 virgins. Guess what they get?
A Big Mac.
A husband. So, to all of our female suicide bombing curious listeners, I don't know.
You know what? Bargain for more. See what you can get.
See what you can get. Or transition before you blow yourself up.
There you go.
Because I'm sure there's nothing in the Quran about that. So, the faithful are reconstituted in jhana as flesh, just as perfected flesh that doesn't make poo.
Okay.
And
So, do you have an anus?
are we still on the subject here? What are we talking about?
Well, if you don't have poo,
Yes. I don't know.
you didn't find that out?
You mean Muhammad didn't describe in detail the anatomy of the perfected
kind of
flesh?
like Leviticus. The Quran is either granularly specific,
Right.
or so fucking dazzlingly broad you can't even understand what the rule is. So no, I didn't find particular ashura for anuses.
Do we get to eat owl? That's the main thing.
Probably. But here's the thing about those perfected bodies. They are all 33 years old forever.
Why 33?
I don't know.
You know what? That was a good year for me.
I'd be fine being 33 again.
Fuck.
I'd take it.
I'd feel like a kid again. But
Yeah.
I couldn't find any info on whether those younger than 33, like children, suddenly find themselves forever 33. Right? So,
They didn't get to go through the
Right.
awkward teen
you can see
years.
some kid being like, hey, heaven's awesome and all, but I really would have liked to have been 20 for a little while. But
Yeah, no.
let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. I've got forever to get over it, so I'll just chomp on some pomegranates for a while. But for our contemporary listeners out there, maybe fans of science fiction, I think the whole concept can best be summed up by the lyrics of Headin' Out to Eden, sung by Adam, the hippie space musician, in Season 3, Episode 20 of the original Star Trek. He and his hippie space hijackers were in a desperate search for an idyllic, mythical planet that is so much like the Muslim heaven of Jannah. And I quote, "Headin' out to Eden, yay, brother. Headin' out to Eden, yay, brother.
Yeah.
No more trouble in my body or my mind. Gonna live like a king on whatever I find. Eat all the fruit and throw away the rind. Yay, brother."
So far, so good.
If only we had some space loot music to put over that.
And if you, for true Star Trek fans, they will remember that was when Spock played what looked like kind of a big preserved pork leg, and
As an instrument?
yeah, you remember that?
No, I didn't.
He had a Vulcan space harp. So a little about the structure and the landscape of Jannah.
Okay.
This too is a little all over the place, but it's awesome just the same. In most description, it has 7 layers, like an amazing bean dip. But in some versions, it's 8. A little like the stratified Mormon heaven we discussed in episode 8, but with the lowest being the material world of the living and the very highest being an unattainable realm. Most agree it has 8 gates, each guarded by angels or Ridwan, who welcome the righteous.
Oh, I remember this one. it's only one guy. Everyone else, he's the one going to St. Ives, and everyone else, 8 gates with 8 layers. I'm trying to do the math on that. I remember this riddle though.
Okay, well, if you can answer it by the end.
Wow, you guys left me so hanging on that.
I have no idea what it.
Hung me out to dry entirely on that.
I thought you knew where you were going with that. I totally know what you're talking about, but it ends up being just one guy.
Yeah.
On the road, I met a
I have no fucking idea what
big
that
riddle.
is.
Yeah.
What?
No.
The St. Ives riddle? Classic?
No,
Okay, never mind. Go on.
I'm older. I'm before riddles.
He remembers the Sphinx's riddle.
I remember answering it.
All right, everybody tweet at Mark about the St. Ives riddle.
I'm super excited for that. It's going to be fun times for at Dan Beecher.
No.
It's bounded by 4 rivers: the Sir Daria, the Amu Daria, and these are both real rivers in Central Asia, and also by the Euphrates and the Nile. And if one keeps traveling through Jannah, one will eventually arrive at the Sidrat el Muntaha, which is a lot tree, which is an actual sort of big, bushy, shady tree,
Sure.
which is where creation ends, kind of like the very edge of the celestial map.
Okay. It
So-
ends at a tree,
Ends at a fucking tree.
a point.
Like, I think Saudi Arabia, you're out of Saudi Arabia when you arrive at a tree.
You're like, oh shit.
Moreover, everything is made out of gold bricks and pearls and rubies.
Here we go.
And I mean, it sounds nice, but it's a bit much. Like mansions made out of rubies and
Like a
pearls.
A Trump bathroom.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's like Liberace and Trump went to heaven.
But it's now obsolete because no one poops in there.
Dial it down a little bit, Mohammed. And in another tip of the hat to Mormonism, there are animals there too, birds and horses and camels, all of the most dazzling whiteness.
Oh.
And I like this.
Sounds delightsome.
I like this little bit. Each of the layers of heaven are named, and they're kind of cool. So I'm just going to name the layers. And all my Arabic friends out there will be incredibly impressed by my pronunciation.
Indeed.
The first is Al-Makam Al-Amin, the house of security.
Okay.
The second is Al-Makad Al-Siddiq, the assembly of truth. Then there's Jannat Al-Naim, the gardens of delight. Jannat Al-Mawa, the gardens of abode.
Oh.
Then there's Jannat Al-Khuld, the eternal gardens. Jannat Al-Adn, the gardens of everlasting bliss. Dar Al-Akira, the home in the hereafter. Dar Al-Salam, the home of peace. Dar al-Makama, the home. And lastly, Firdaus, as mentioned above, the highest gardens of paradise. So basically, it's the same naming system they use for high-end retirement communities in Florida.
Sure.
Yeah, where's Del Boca Vista Phase 2 in there?
So, if, like we were saying before, if a random American knows anything about Muslim heaven, it's 72 awkward teenagers waiting there for you on the other side. So that's right, 72 virgins. Every religion has one or two thingamajigs they don't want to talk about so much. As listeners may know, for Mormonism, that's about 30% of their foundational texts,
Right.
and about 85% of their history. For Catholics, it's wafer-based cannibalism, and that the church is little more than a diplomatically immune, tax-exempt international squad of kid-raping commandos. And for Islam, it's the 72 virgins thing. But it is in both the Quran and the even bigger mess of six-hand oral traditions attributed to Muhammad known as the Hadith. And I don't know if you guys have explored the Hadith much.
Not as much as I should.
I feel like we're both pros at it.
It's an incredible mess, and it's really interesting researching some of this stuff. The Quran existed only as an oral tradition until after Muhammad's death. And then there were so many wars going on that the guys who had memorized it from oral tradition were getting killed in the wars, and it almost got lost.
Oh, wow.
So they kind of they gathered whoever was left and
Good
got
God.
them to kind of recite what they knew and put it all together.
The world that could have been if an errant arrow had found the right.
And then for like hundreds of years, there were 4 copies. And and then this other thing is the Hadith, which are just things attributed to Muhammad, things he said, things he did, things he believed, that weren't necessarily inspired from Jibreel. And that was another giant mess. So the Hadith are kind of the second source in Islam. And but anyway,
Is it bad that I stopped paying attention about halfway through that?
Oh, it's interesting stuff. So the 72 martyrs or 72 virgins are mostly mentioned in the Hadith. And as we said, male martyrs get 72 virgins to whom they are married upon entering Jannah. Female martyrs, as mentioned, get one man. Hopefully he's got a big dick.
Or something.
So I'm a gay guy.
What?
I know. What a shock. I'm sorry, listeners. I decided episode 40 whatever is the one to come out in.
You just heard the sound of thousands of female listeners turning off the podcast.
I think we have thousands of female listeners. Like any podcast has thousands of female listeners. And I don't want to get into graphic detail here, but am I wrong that intercourse with a female virgin maybe is not like the more advanced good times to be had with the woman who's been to all seven heavens, if you catch my drift?
This is what I've always thought. Like, yeah, the whole concept of like fucking a virgin has this like gross appeal to some. I don't want to say it's gross. I just want to say I like a woman with some. I like a partner with some experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want some. I mean, there's this concept. I think there's a lot of insecurity where guys are like, I need to be the only one that's ever been there.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
It's definitely that. But
that's just ugly.
It's also-
that's just stupidity.
It's also power and ownership.
Yeah.
Right. It's the patriarch. We're talking about fucking the origins of Islam. Yes, it was a patriarchal society.
Right.
But yeah, it's not you get 72 women that know how to fuck.
exactly.
Right. It's
No one looks back on their life and thinks about the best time they had sex was the first time.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
so it's super weird. And these are the huri, the 72 girls are these kind of immortal beings that were actually not humans, if I understand it correctly. They've always been in Jannah. They've never really lived on Earth. So whatever. So it's like Westworld, I guess. But again, keep in mind that if you want to expand and convince people to take up the sword and very likely die for you, there better be a solid incentive on the other side of this veil of tears. So ruby houses and 6 dozen super awkward first dates. I guess there's no accounting for taste. So lastly, and this is good news for us, this is why I say we should live as atheists, and if we live again, do it as Muslims, because there is some possibility for non-Muslims to enter Jannah.
Okay.
Those who died as children, age not specified, and any non-Muslim, and this is good, who has not yet heard the message of Islam, but fervently believes in Allah.
Oh, well, sure. Sure.
That's quite a big loophole there.
Congrats to those no people ever. So that's Jannah, fellas. Land of milk and honey and pearls and immortal, sexual, inexperienced sister wives and no poo.
Sounds great.
I want to go to there.
Yeah. So that's Jannah. That's the best one we've done so far. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds nice. I mean, it's basically like a nice version. It's, you know what it is? It's Joseph Smith. It's a nice version of here. It's Joseph Smith's hell sounds like
Earth.
Their heaven.
Right.
And that's as good as we've gotten so far in a description of a nice eternity.
So good job, Muhammad. Yay.
Yay.
With that, let's move on.
Moving on.
Well, Uncle Dan,
Yeah.
I believe Uncle Doug has prepared something wonderful for us today.
A lesson. Today's lesson is a reading from the book of Matthew.
Matthew and Luke.
Okay.
Wow.
Hey, I got one of them.
Yeah,
did.
nice job.
Thank you.
So we're going back to and Uncle Doug has done the Gospels with us before, and usually about Easter and Christmas, and
Yeah.
what a just hot mess of garbage a good editor could have fixed. But that's not what we're doing today. Uncle Doug, what are we talking about from...
Well, I thought
And why are you sitting up on that mound?
I can be on a mound or a plane. We'll get to that in a second.
Oh, good Lord.
A few weeks back we did one of the parables.
Sure.
And I was kind of looking into that for today's show, and I caught
Now
sidelines.
that's a curve that has a constant. A parable is one of those.
No, it's a really active bowl.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
hyperbole.
Jesus.
There's two of those.
Shame on both of us.
Jesus.
Here we go.
So, the parables and the Sermon on the Mount are the actual, words of Jesus within the context of the Bible.
Red letter shit.
Yeah, close to the source as you can possibly get.
Assuming that there was actually
Of
ever
course,
a source.
all of those assumptions being
Yes, in a book that never got close to whatever source may or may not have existed.
Exactly.
This is as close. So I
As-
guess that counts for something.
counts for something.
Hooray!
Yeah.
At least this is the character of Jesus saying something. And I kind of got sidelined into the Beatitudes, so I thought we'd take a little time and talk about the Beatitudes today.
All right.
And for those of our listeners who are familiar with the Beatitudes, or those who are not, the Beatitudes are a series of blessings recounted by Jesus at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount in the Gospel of Matthew.
Do we know what that word means?
We do, as a matter of fact.
Beatitude. I don't know. I've never known what that means.
The word beati in Greek translates to happiness or blessedness.
Okay.
So you know how each of these, most of the Beatitudes start with "Blessed are the blank."
Sure.
So the word was originally in Greek, it was beati, and then
Which was the first hashtag in the ancient text.
exactly.
Right.
It was anglicized into Beatitudes in the Great Bible of 1540, and then over time has been changed, morphed into Beatitudes.
Sure.
So it actually doesn't have, for the longest time as a young religious person that read the Bible, I thought it had something to do with attitude. It was like,
Right,
be
sure.
good attitude.
I did too. I thought it was just some Mormon scold, and I'd like.
Yeah.
I've always hated the word because, like, girls in sacrament meeting would be giving a speech, and they'd talk about beatitudes,
Right.
And I thought it was just like adjust your. What was it? Lengthen your stride.
Yeah, lengthen
I thought
your
it was one of
stride
those things,
yeah.
one of one of those Mormon catchphrases.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like
I was like, "Fuck you."
Was that a thing? I never heard lengthen your walk longer.
No, one of the prophets said, lengthen your stride,
Lengthen your stride.
quicken your step.
yeah, it was meant to like pick up the pace.
Do more free work for the church."
Mormons need to be faster.
Yeah.
If there's one thing we know, it's we need faster Mormons.
That's right.
We need high speed.
We won't talk about it today, but we got to come up with a different name for the church now that they've eschewed Mormon.
Oh my God! They did a whole thing. That's going to take just as well as it took the last time they tried to get away from Mormonism, from the word Mormon.
That was an explosive moment of diarrhea. I think they're not going to be able to get back in the tube.
Oh my God,
What a
that's
mess. But
so funny.
we should talk about that another time.
Another time.
Yeah.
So,
What word are we hating now? Beatitudes.
Beatitudes. So the Beatitudes are at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount in the Gospel of Matthew, and in the beginning of what's called the Sermon on the Plain in the Gospel of Luke, which I did not know was a thing until
I didn't know that either.
So
So he took his show on the road.
yeah, he was exactly. In the book of Luke was written before the book of Matthew, and clearly, the Matthew writer took the kernel of what was the Sermon on the Plain and amped it up, put it on a hill.
Sometimes the second pass
Yeah,
is a better. You
punch it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Your second draft. Your second
exactly.
draft.
Yeah.
You bring in some comedians, you punch it up, get some pizza and Diet Coke.
You read the room.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So
The people want wine. Do they want loaves and fishes? You just got to
Who knows?
work the crowd.
just think if they kept doing a gospel every few years, like they do Fast and Furious movies, how great it would have been by now.
What's the Middle Eastern equivalent to what plays in Peoria?
I don't know.
Pretoria?
That was pretty
South
funny.
Africa.
That's not. Yeah, I know.
That was good.
It was as close as I could get.
American geography, people. You're welcome, world.
Okay, so the Sermon on the Plain in the book of Luke is only part of one chapter, but in the book of Matthew they punch it up. It's 3 chapters, 5, 6, and 7, and it's on a hill now. It's on the mount, and so it's each of the Beatitudes consists of 2 phrases. There's a condition and a result. It's a very specific linguistic trick that's never used again in the Bible. So in almost every case, the condition is from an Old Testament context, and then Jesus puts his new spin on it.
Okay.
So the Sermon on the Mount is the longest unbroken speech by Jesus in all of the Bible. And it is pretty full of...
It was his Friday Night Lights.
It was his free bird.
inspirational-
That's right.
Can you do when you read it to us? I assume you're going to read some of
Yes.
it to us. Will you do it as? Do you do like a Seinfeld? Because it feels like that's what it should be.
Blessed are the peacemakers. That's my best Seinfeld. Isn't that sad? Jesus. Like the most easily parodied comedian ever. I can't even come
What's
close.
the deal with pacemakers?
There you go.
You know what? It's probably I'm wrong. It's probably more of a Foxworthy thing. It's a setup and a pun. It's his. It's like the you might be a redneck, but it's
You
like
might be a peacemaker.
if you're a peacemaker, you might be blessed. I don't know.
All right,
We'll
so
work on it.
the Sermon on the Mount covers a ton of ground. So it's Jesus Christ talking his specific teachings on murder, adultery, marriage, lying, loving your enemies. The Lord's Prayer is in the Sermon on the Mount.
Oh God.
Not judging, and a shit ton more. It is like, there'll be chapters of any of these books where nothing happens. This is where everything's packed in. He has a very specific emphasis and view on the wealthy and wealth. Any guesses?
He worships it, and it's the best thing ever.
I'm going to turn now to the Book of Osteen. Yeah, it's funny. Like, basically, half of what Jesus said is that fuck rich people.
And it's so clear.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no mention of capital gains taxes. There's no mention of corporate marginal tax rates. It's very specific.
Right,
That you need to cast off your wealth.
Much like anybody that works at a free clinic or a social worker that serves the homeless and the indigent, who probably constantly are saying "fuck the rich."
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
He was a social worker.
Absolutely. He was an itinerant, carpenter. Well, we assume that. And whose attitude on the rich was probably like anybody else at that time and place.
Right.
So,
I just it's so funny because I think about this attitude, this whole like don't be rich, cast off your money, and I think about the Mitt Romneys of the world, and
Right.
and those who profess to follow Jesus and yet have gazillions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I just think to I'm like, yeah, you're a hypocrite. And then I think about my father-in-law, and I'm like, nobody tell him about these verses because the last thing I need is for that guy to give away all of his riches before he passes away.
Jesus. Okay, Dad.
So now I'm realizing that that hypocrisy is a little understandable. Like I get it on some level. Whoa.
Well, and also that the Osteens and the Mitt Romneys of the world, who are very, very, very faithful to Jesus,
Right.
yet believe in this, which I believe is in Matthew, isn't it, where the prosperity gospel kind of springs out of the parable of the talents. We can talk about another time.
yeah, we'll talk about it another time.
But how, yes, they're rich, which is something Jesus said, don't fucking do that. And they point the finger at poor people and say, well, you're poor because of some spiritual failing.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't that delightful?
you fucked up. That's why you're poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
It's just
that's not what your fucking book
Stop
says.
being Christian. God
Right.
damn it.
Right, yeah.
You don't have to be Christian. You're making me really angry.
Osteen would still have to be Christian. Otherwise, I guess he could walk and he'd be fine. Like all he has to do is just leave it, and he'll still have millions. And
Or
millions
he could
of
go
dollars.
back to what the original purpose of the church he locked flood refugees out of was, and just have a basketball team.
Sure.
Or
sure.
a band. He has a band, doesn't he? He's one of those.
Or he could work.
churches,
He
isn't
could work with teeth. That seems to be something he's very comfortable with.
Please Google a picture of Joel Osteen smiling.
Fuck that guy.
Okay, so back to the Beatitudes. In the book of Luke, it's only 3 verses.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're very short. I had really thought there was a lot more to these, but there really isn't.
Sure.
In the context of the sermon, it's just one small part, but it's a small part. So in chapter 6, verse 20 of the book of Luke, and he lifted up his eyes on his disciples and said, "Blessed be ye poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are ye that hunger now, for ye shall be filled. Blessed are ye that weep now, for ye shall laugh. Blessed are ye when man shall hate you, and when they shall separate you from their company, and shall reproach you, and cast you out, cast your name as evil for the Son of Man's sake." That's it. That's the Beatitudes in Luke.
Okay.
So,
What does that last one mean?
That
I don't
one, that one needs work.
yeah, totally. You can tell this was version 1.
Yeah. Let's punch that up a little
I
bit.
think it means if you're someone who's being bullied or people are being mean to. I'm being serious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too.
Right. If you're friendless. And,
Yeah,
yeah.
And in my name's sake, you're blessed.
Why couldn't he just say if you're friendless and alone?
Well, I'm sure that in the other versions of the Bible, which I did look at a couple, but didn't want to go down that path, The more modern versions, that's kind of what it.
Do you think
it's at.
I can't believe this would be true, but do you think monks who illuminated Bibles got paid by the word? Like
Job security.
yes, they just kept fucking adding, just kept bulking it up.
All right, so let's hit the Beatitudes in Matthew,
Yes, please.
and these are the ones you'll recognize. Chapter 5, verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Okay.
Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted.
So we've gone from poor to poor in spirit.
Yeah.
So we've eased up on the whole rich guy thing.
Well,
on the whole poor person thing.
There was some. I read about someone's interpretation of poor in spirit is actually people who've given away their worldly possessions.
Oh.
But I don't know if I ascribe
just
to that.
poor.
Yeah,
that's
does
just poor.
yeah, that doesn't
but
sound
done
right.
so for righteousness' sake. But yeah, you're right. We've gone from being straight up poor to poor in spirit.
Okay.
All right, whatever.
Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
You got to have some balls to take care of the earth. Like you can, it's fucking crazy out there.
I do love the idea though
You
of a
can't
bunch
be a
of
homebody.
a bunch of very meek people going, what do we do with this now? I don't know what to do.
Like the least qualified people to inherit the earth.
It's a fucking wilderness
Going
out
to
there.
mismanage this thing into the ground.
Yeah.
Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled.
Sure.
Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Great.
Sweet.
Thanks.
Great.
Blessed are the peacemakers, or the cheesemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed
The
are
cheddar
they.
of God.
Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake.
Okay, so it's the same list
Yeah,
essentially.
there's four of the same ones.
Yeah.
Matthew just expounds that he adds those that mourn, the meek, the
Yeah.
merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers. That's it. So, that's really the entirety of the Beatitudes.
It basically says, it's every kid hiding in his mom's basement because he doesn't have any friends in school is a torture for him. It basically says, look, get through this. On the other side, it's going to be okay.
Oh, but following that, if it's the fucking meek, do you know what that means? That means, speaking of people in their mom's basement, these 4chan troll motherfuckers inherit the earth.
I think that's
No.
an untented consequence of the
I
Beatitudes.
feel like once you troll, you stop being meek. Once you start trolling, that's not the act of a meek
We
person.
have to go to the judges on that one. I don't know.
So, other than that, I mean, they're just very, very vague. I mean, it's horoscope level
Right.
niceties. I mean, there's no specifics about what does it mean to be pure in heart? What does it
Right.
mean to be a peacemaker? What do you know? I don't know.
Well, and not only are the conditions not entirely clear, the reward is not tremendously clear either.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, exactly.
Very general.
Look, blessed are those that mourn; they should be comforted. Great.
Oh,
But if you're meek, you get the fucking planet.
you got a earth. I'm sad. Well, okay. Well, you'll get to feel better. But are you also meek? Because frankly, I can't give you earth without it.
Well, you know what I think they are? I think the Beatitudes, as you've read them, are the common axle of the world, all the world's quote, using scare quotes
For sure.
great religions, which
Yeah.
is, this life sucks,
yeah,
so behave yourself, don't rock the boat, it's going to be amazing.
yeah.
Right.
If you're meek and let the centurions kick you around or whatever, or pay your taxes, then it's going to be great.
Right. Well,
Which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it isn't. It isn't going to be great. You got to make it great now.
agreed.
Make it great now.
You can't.
Don't be meek.
Don't. I mean, if
Don't
you're-
be poor in spirit.
right. And for the love of God, don't mourn.
Don't ever mourn.
And not for nothing, but again, these are a litany of attributes that we are meant to aspire to, none of which are embodied by a certain president, who is the titular head of the Christian movement in this country now. Fucking weird.
Yeah.
There's a little coda to this in the book of Luke. After the much abbreviated version of the Beatitudes, there are the 4 woes.
Oh dear.
Jeez.
So there's just
Woe.
a handful of little woes. I know. But woe unto you that are rich, for ye have received your consolation. Woe unto you that are full, for ye shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for ye shall mourn and weep. Damn.
Fuck.
Woe unto you when all men shall speak well of you, for so did their fathers to the false prophets.
So if you're highly regarded in your community, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
And it kind of cancels out all the good stuff that just happened, doesn't it?
Yeah, the laughing one is scary.
I know.
I mean that's getting a little Joe Pesci on you. Oh, am I a clown here to amuse
funny to you?
Oh, is it funny? Is there something funny here?
For some reason, when you said Joe Pesci, I thought you were talking about Joe Piscopo, and I'm like, oh, it's fine. He's never made anybody laugh.
Yeah, but you know what? You've never seen those two guys in the same room at the same time.
So true.
Pescopo.
So, like so many other parts of the Bible, the Beatitudes seemed so daunting until you actually crack them open, and it's just not a lot there.
You know what? It's the whole Bible is 1,000 pages. It's literally it's like 900 pages of blah, 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 that's just crap. That's just, so and so begat so and so, and then squoze in there in places that you least expect. There's like the stuff that people actually quote,
Right.
And that's that.
Yeah, and even that, the Beatitudes are supposed to be this amazing, call to be a better person, or Jesus reaching to the lowliest. And I'm sure in Iron Age Palestine, lowly was a pretty large slice of the demographic,
Right.
But even that, it's vague and basically meaningless, and it's just like.
I don't know if you ever saw this. I'm sure you guys haven't, since I happen to have tested your Monty Python knowledge just earlier today and been pleasantly surprised. There's a video of after the Life of Brian came out where I think it was Eric Idle and John Cleese were on a panel on the BBC with a couple Anglican, and was it Palin?
It was Palin.
Yeah. With like an Anglican minister and I think a Catholic priest or something like that, who were berating them for having made this movie that was in their mind blasphemous.
Right.
And their point was actually this whole story happens adjacent to Jesus.
Right.
That's the comedy of it. Is Jesus, the only time Jesus is in it is in that scene where he's giving the Sermon on the Mount.
Right.
And you pan back so far.
He's too
you can't
far
hear
away
him anymore.
Right.
And
I think he said, "Blessed are the cheesemakers."
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very funny movie. But these guys were this priest was saying, you even sullied the most glorious utterance ever spoken by a human in history with the Beatitudes.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't really think these are that beautiful.
Have you read it, Padre? Because huh?
Right.
If anything, it's really about it. Just is, and I get it. If anything, it's a pain to class anxiety.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
and in a book of really terrible things, it is one of those that is not terribly terrible. So,
It's the least terrible. It's the least garbage. So yay.
Hey,
So-
this garbage smells okay.
Well, that was beautiful. And with
God
that,
damn it.
let's move on.
Okay, fine.
Well, Uncle Dan,
Uh-huh.
it's that time in the show
It is.
where we rattle our tin cup and ask the good people of this Earth, the only known inhabited planet,
To stop being such deadbeats.
stop being such deadbeats. Pay your uncle support.
Who pays the piper calls the tunes, except in this case when we actually don't let you call any tunes. But
Sometimes we do.
sure, if you write to us, we probably will.
Sometimes we do requests.
But yeah, absolutely. We have some people to thank who
Yes.
have very generously decided to give to us of their own money
Hard-earned dosh.
to try and keep this thing going.
And remember, we're making up a little time because we weren't able to do this last week because we were shitbags. So
Here we go. Thanks so much to Hiram, Grant, Tori, Betty, Arthur, and Dick Cat.
yes,
Thank all of these people. These are the best people in the world.
yes,
Because what they do is they don't just listen to the show, which is the first thing you need to be one of the best people in the world.
yes.
But they also decided to just look. All you do, you go to howtoheretic.com and you click on the patron button tab,
Yeah.
whatever we got, and it takes you to the Patreon page, and then you just decide however much you can afford.
in
or
the little amount box, you just type a number, and then you put your hand on the 0 key and just hold it down.
until
your battery dies, and then we're good.
and then we're good.
Yeah, and shout out to Hiram and Tori, who are direct friends of the show. We're happy to have your support.
Woohoo!
And love you guys. If you cannot be as cool as Hiram and Tori and the rest of that honored crew today, but you still want to show your uncles some love, you can do that by assigning us 5 stars over to the iTunes or anywhere else they'll let you do that.
Stitcher's a good place. A lot of people don't know, if you're listening on Stitcher, you can give us a review on Stitcher.
Yeah.
And that's good too. We just appreciate whatever you're willing to do for us.
Yeah.
But we appreciate the people who give us money more.
Yep.
That's all we're saying.
And remember, the Supreme Court decided money is speech, so that's you talking back to us.
And yeah, exactly. And vote for us.
Yes.
That's how you vote for us.
Vote for your uncles always. So much love. Let's move on.
Do it.
Well, Uncle Doug,
Uncle Mark.
sometimes we need to do a little gardening. Sometimes we garden in the graveyard, and sometimes we garden in the garden.
Sure.
And today is an interest. I think today is a little agriculture we could do right on the margin of those two worlds, right?
It kind of is. It's kind of a both and a neither.
Yeah.
So it's not in the garden or the other garden.
Well,
Here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the big secret of our show.
Right.
And I'm gonna spill the whole beans here. None of the gods are real. So the one that I'm about to say,
Uncle Dan. Uncle Dan's gone mad.
but the one
about?
the one that I'm going to say is extra not real.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys know this, but this week in Little Rock,
Yeah.
as you may have heard,
That's in a state here called Arkansas. For
Yes,
our
indeed.
foreign listeners.
that's right.
It had a very prominent and famous governor.
Mike Huckabee.
Mike Huckabee,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes. So Arkansans, also known as Arkanites, and my favorite, Arkansawyers.
Is this true?
I've
never heard Arkanites. Is that true?
Or Arkansawyer.
according to Wikipedia,
Arkanites.
Arkansawyers.
Well, we're Utahns, and there's 2 spellings for that.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
That can't be.
HNS and HANS.
Yeah, there's an extra A in
Utahans?
Utahans.
Utahans.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they're just trying to work a ha-ha. In
Or a Utah Sawyer.
right.
Utah Knights.
Anyway, these people from Arkansas were shocked and horrified by the unfortunately non-permanent display of an 8-foot-tall statue on the grounds of their state capitol. This, of course, was brought there by our good friend Lucian Greaves and his Satanic Temple as a protest to the 10 Commandments that have gone up on the grounds there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they do. The statue itself is the now famous Baphomet.
Yes. Hail Baphomet.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. The goat-headed god flanked by 2 adoring children.
Yes.
Looking up at him.
I'll tell you what, that Baphomet does not miss a day at the gym.
No.
Oh yeah, he's doing all right. He's a sexy, handsome.
No, and as we discussed with Lucian, it's actually quite a beautiful statue, and
Indeed.
and provocative. It's all the good things.
It's all the good things.
Yeah.
So in honor of that, I thought I would dig into the guy himself, Baphomet, not Lucian. But because I know nothing about him, he's widely associated in this society with Satan. Satanists have taken him on. If you ask a Christian who that goat-headed guy is, they're going to say the word Satan. He's not.
Right.
He's not Satan. He's not even a thing, really. Nobody ever worshipped this guy. Nobody ever actually cared about this guy, as we'll learn.
Okay.
Sad.
Right?
Yeah. But it has a happy ending, it sounds like.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, we can get to... and I think that happy ending is all about the Satanic Temple and Lucian. And
No one's worshipped me all my life, and I don't think that's going to happen in my future. So I'm happy for him.
You know what? I'm getting there. I'm almost to worshiping you.
Well,
you put in a couple more weeks at the gym, and I'm there.
here and listen, just for any art lovers out there, and maybe you don't have a chance to go to the Met in New York, or to a larger city to see a beautiful statuary. But if you want to see this beautiful Baphomet statue, all you have to do is elect a bunch of fucking Christianist morons to your legislature,
Right.
who will then put a Ten Commandments statue on your Capitol grounds, and Baphomet will just show up.
He'll just come.
The great thing about that plan is in almost every town in America, you're about halfway there already.
Yeah, that's right. Or the other way is you can look in the mirror and you say his name 3 times. You got to light a candle, I think.
You say Huckabee 3 times. Or Baphomet? You say Huckabee 3 times, and a bucket of chicken appears.
But don't eat the chicken. Do not be fooled.
Eat the chicken.
You'll want to, but don't do it. Yeah. Anyway, so as you know, this beautifully crafted totem, it was created basically to strike terror into the hearts of the good God-fearing Christians.
It's so hard to do.
Right? No, it's so...
You don't need a 12-foot bronze devil.
You know what, though? It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt.
You just need one trans kid that wants to use a bathroom.
Right, yeah, exactly. Or just mention that there are trans people in the world. It's fine. But, this is to make sure that the Christians who feel it's their holy duty to make damn good and sure that their beliefs are inflicted by force if necessary on anyone they come in contact with, this is to make sure that they shut the hell up. That's his whole concept.
Right.
But Baphomet's not Satan. So,
Okay.
let's go back in time. The earliest recorded mention that we have extant was from 1098.
Really? That old? I thought it was a more recent
Yeah, me too.
creation.
It both is and isn't.
Okay.
But that word, we'll get back to what that word actually probably meant. But it was mentioned in a letter from a guy who was on the Crusades and was talking about a failed attempt to murder a bunch of Muslims. And how they were all calling on the name of Baphomet.
He was having a case of the Mondays, and he wrote his friends to
Yeah,
say,
exactly.
bad day at the office.
Bad day at the Crusades. And boy, weren't so many of them that way. Anyway, but really, he comes into fame in the late 13th and early 14th century. Oddly, and everybody get ready, all you Dan Brown fans out there.
Oh, no.
It was because worship of Baphomet was one of the main charges in the heresy trials of the members of the, and I did not know that this was the name, Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, a.k.a. the Order of Solomon, a.k.a. the Knights Templar.
They're called the Poor Fellows?
The Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon.
Wait. So they, during the heresy trials, they were charged with
Here's the
this?
deal. I mean, so I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but the French king owed a shit ton of money apparently to the Knights Templar by this point. And in order to get out of it,
He just burned them all.
he just accused them of heresy, including, strangely, I think peeing and spitting on the cross. But also one of the charges was worshiping Baphomet.
Okay.
Really?
And that was and then of course what happens in those days when you're charged with heresy is that
you get a bird lawyer.
you're treated very well. Yes, you get a bird lawyer. You're treated very well and everything goes fine.
So this king is basically, this is the version of the king in that episode of The Office when Michael Scott declared bankruptcy.
Right. Except that what actually happens when you're accused of heresy is that you're tortured until you admit to heresy, which everyone does because you're being tortured and then you're killed.
And then you're burned alive.
Yeah. So
Yay, Christianity.
several of the Knights Templar did confess to worshiping Baphomet. None of them had the same story. So one guy said it was a head. Another guy said it was a cat. Another guy said it was like this thing with 3 faces. None of them knew what the fuck it was that they were accused of worshiping or of idolizing. But boy, they all admitted to it. So that's when this comes first into the real into the minds of the general populace.
Right.
And then we move on, and then it just sort of, I get the sense it just sort of simmered in the zeitgeist for a while before it became more of a thing when a guy named, so there was a sort of occultist known as Joseph von Hammer-Purgstall. You're welcome.
The greatest name for an occultist ever.
Who sort of called on him and on Baphomet and came up with this idea of Baphomet being all about oppositions and
Right, so
the
is
light
this-
and the dark. And
Is this when the first depiction of him? Well, I think it's a they.
It's a him. It's a they in the non-gendered sense. You mean?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So what we've got is an image of a god with both genders because it's all about both. It's all about boths.
right.
Light and dark, good and evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, male, female, life, death,
all of the
stuff.
boths.
Yeah.
So breasts on a male, but a male figure, but maybe not male, but maybe all of these things. And then a guy named Eliphas Levi or something was the first person to came up with a drawing. He's the first person to put a goat on the head.
Right.
Before that, it was just a person head, and literally came up with and inserted the pentagram on the forehead, and like a point at the top of the head where fire was coming out, like a sort of a torch sort of thing. And all of these things are used by the Satanic Temple in their vision of Baphomet. Satanic Temple eliminated the boobs because they didn't want to get into a whole gendered thing. And the last thing what they wanted to do is create a monument that could conceivably actually be placed on a Capitol grounds or something.
It wasn't like breaking any obscenity laws. Or something
exactly.
Like that.
They didn't want to give any grounds to say no other than just I'm scared.
Because there are still very strict no bronze boob laws in 47 states.
That's right, in most states.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised which ones don't have the laws.
Yeah. Mississippi, weirdly.
Strange.
And Rhode Island.
They require bronze
and
boobs.
Hawaii.
The only thing those three states have in common.
You can see a bronze boob.
Just metal titties everywhere you look. So basically, literally, this was a made-up character that people kept imposing their ideas on.
Right, and other than his use for destroying the Templars,
right?
It sounds like everybody else, von Helsingspugel and E-Flam,
Levi or whatever.
It sounds like those uses were kind of as a symbolic being, right?
Basically, yeah.
In the same way, Lucian uses and the Satanic Temple use Baphomet as a symbolic being,
right? And it ends up being this sort of like underground occultist image that people glom onto when they want to get a little creepsy.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they don't but this was never an actual god that was worshipped, really. In more modern times, Aleister Crowley, who's known as sort of he's kind of the granddaddy of modern Satanism.
Yeah.
He did take the image. You know that image? I don't know if you've seen it. It's an inverted pentagram, so a 5-pointed star pointing down.
Yeah.
And then there's a goat head that's sort of in it. And it fits really nicely. You know, the
it's a
mouth
triangle.
comes
It's
down,
a triangular shape.
and then the ears make two things, and the horns make two things, and it's like And Aleister Crowley took that and sort of used that as a symbol in his Church of Satan.
Yeah, and we'll have to another time. We should do a whole thing on Aleister Crowley because
Yeah, totally. He's a fascinating character.
Indeed. But yeah, so that was the Baphomet of Levi or of Levi. I don't know how he pronounces it. Levi. And that's sort of the image that has persisted ever since. And that was in the 1800s that Levi did that. And that's kind of the image that's persisted. And that's what the Satanic Temple was drawing on. But literally, this was a god that was invented to make these Templars look bad. Now, what did they have to do with the Templars? Well, here's the thing. Baphomet was probably a mispronunciation or a different pronunciation of Mahomet.
Muhammad.
It was Muhammad.
Well, that makes sense.
So this was a bastardization of the word Muhammad, and they were being accused of because they went into Islamic territory.
Right.
They were being
They got the devil on them.
they were accused of allowing some of that garden heaven stuff to creep in
Right.
to their belief systems, and were accused of a little bit of idol worship of Muhammad as opposed to staying nice and
So
pure and
what's
Christian.
fascinating is that, in a way, what Lucian Greaves and the Satanic Temple are doing is using Baphomet in very much the same way
Right.
that the King of France used him in,
Right.
which is nobody in that room believed in Baphomet, but it was a tool to achieve a political end.
Well, this would be
Right.
closer. I mean, I think the analogy falls apart because this would be because the modern equivalent, what Lucian is doing, is it's as though the Templar Knights themselves are using Baphomet against the king. Like that's what we're talking about.
Exactly
here.
right, but it's still an invented boogeyman,
Right.
To force a political outcome.
Right. And Lucian and the Satanic Temple will be the first to tell you this is not someone that this is not
They don't worship Baphomet.
They don't believe in Baphomet.
No.
They don't believe in Satan.
They believe in what Baphomet represents.
They let it represent something, and
Yeah.
so they've imposed their own series of ideas upon him in the fine tradition of the ages,
Right.
Which is fine. Levy's Baphomet has, like I said, a pentagram on the forehead. It's got a what's that snaky thing? The
Caduceus.
Yeah, the two snakes on the rod, sort of coming up out of his pants, which
Really?
His goatskin leggings.
Badoom! Yeah, exactly. And he's got the words solve and coagula on his forearms.
Yeah.
On one arm, solve, which the root word, I think, for solvent, it means to break things apart.
Okay.
And coagula,
To put them together.
to join them together. And he's got two fingers pointing up and two fingers pointing down, representing,
Heaven and hell, day and night, light and dark,
up and down.
up and down.
Whatever.
I was going to get there.
That's where the Cub Scout salute comes from.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Satan.
Yeah.
We're cracking this open.
Dan Brown, baby.
Wide open.
QAnon.
Let's let QAnon know.
Oh, he already does.
Oh yeah, long since figured this out. They decided to give the Satanic Temple decided to give him goat hooves as well, and so he's goat-legged because he was kind of inspired by there are goat-headed gods that precede
Right.
Baphomet, including
Right.
Pan, and
they usually represent kind of the more carnal side of humanity.
lustful and playful
randy.
and a little bit countercultural.
Right.
And that's kind of a useful thing. They left off the breasts, but there's the torch between the horns, which is knowledge, which represents knowledge to Greaves.
Right.
It glorifies the pursuit of knowledge, which is what Satanic Temple talks about believing in, and they
Right.
believe in like knowledge as it comes from science, not as it comes from people who just tell you something.
Right.
So
From popes.
right, and that's kind of their thing. So basically, this terrifying figure that all of Arkansas is just horrified by
Yeah.
doesn't even represent Satan, which I think is amazing. It is
Right.
just it is this goat guy, with some symbols on him that they're afraid of. And he's so harmless, it's impossible to think that he doesn't even have boobs.
Yeah, but you think about it. It's just ticking off the list. He's this possibly Islamic-inspired immigrant, goat-headed god, possibly transgender. I mean,
Right.
If you make him a vegan, you get Christian fear bingo.
Right.
If he rode his bike on the sidewalk rather than the bike lane, I would be like, perfect. Perfect. Right?
I mean, basically, this is just a guy that is a usefully scary, like freaky looking dude.
That has always been, as I was saying, a tool.
Yeah.
He's just always been a tool.
Just a useful guy.
Like any god, but this is the closest most people will come to understanding. He's just like all the rest of them. He's just a tool for to force an outcome.
Ironically, probably responsible for the least amount of death of any god in history.
The only people that die because of him die because they're accused of believing in him.
Yeah. And it's funny too when we were talking about Lucian. This isn't Satan. They don't worship him. I don't know how many times I've heard Lucian Greaves say, "We do not worship Baphomet. We are a non-theistic religious order."
Yeah.
They don't hear it. They just look at the scary devil thing, and that's it.
Well, what's delightful is that if you go to their website, it says this is just symbolism to us.
Yeah.
This is just an idea to us. We don't worship him. We don't care about him. And also, all we care about is either you have to be inclusive of all religions or don't put any religious stuff up on your on government grounds.
Right.
They're explicit about all of this.
Explicit.
And they also say I think they've actually said in public that this is just, we get that it's scary for you, but we made it like they put children looking up longing, like adoringly.
Right. He's teaching them.
He's teaching them. He's not horrifying. He's not hurting anybody. He's purposefully just sort of calm faced.
Yeah. He looks like a guru. He looks he's someone who's there to impart wisdom.
Yeah, if he had snails on his head, he'd be the Buddha.
He has the same workout routine as Matthew McConaughey, though.
Yeah, that's true. He's got some
and the same goatskin leggings.
He's got some good delts. Yeah. Anyway, so that's him. He's that is the terror of the seven seas for
the
Christians.
Terror of the Arkanites.
Yes, indeed.
Exposed.
Those Arkansawyers are fearful people.
Well, that's wonderful. Let's put him back in the garden or on the State House lawn, and let's move on.
Yes, indeed.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you. What satanic Baphomet do you have in your household? Send us an email, howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you'd like to inherit the earth but you're feeling a little meek about it, you can leave us a very private whispered voicemail at 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. We're also on Twitter and Facebook at HowToHeretic.
Yeah, hey, thanks again to our patrons. You're our favorites.
And our other favorite is Cody Layton, who edits the show for us.
And thank you, dear friends, for tuning in. We sure appreciate you.
Bye-bye, friends.